Dandy Noir. So it's my first time at Afropunk Brooklyn. It's 2017. And when I tell you it was a visual overload, once I walked through those gates, I mean, everywhere I turn, it's everyone dressed in their best, different outfits, different styles, different forms of uh, 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 visual creativity. Just, it was everything I expected and more. And my camera didn't know how to contain itself. From everywhere I turned, it was just something to capture. And eventually I came across this brother who was dappered down to the T from the head to toe. And I asked him, could I take his, to take his photo? And no problem. I come to find out later that this brother had, no pun intended, a legendary name, legend already made. And I got a chance to look more and more at his whole journey. I followed him on IG and just over time continued to look and see what he was doing in his life and, the moves that he was making. And while preparing for the show, I knew that I wanted to have him, I knew I wanted to have him be a part of this exhibition. So, but I knew this was going to be a piece that would take time and take patience. So, in the midst of preparing for creating this piece, I just decided to do a little bit more research on him. And what made it really interesting was finding out a little bit more of where he came from. And his theme overall was reinvention. That's what he talked about from, you know, having to reinvent himself in high school, from being an athlete to, trying out for the school basketball team and getting cut. And instead of, sort of getting down and out about that, he utilized other talents. He became a dancer. In college, he studied acting, visual arts, and he was just forever working to find his lane, whatever that may be. And eventually, he utilized his style as his way of, as his medium. And he had a moniker that he would go by, Black Willy Wonka. And what I saw at Afropunk that year was, I guess you would say, sort of the realization of this reinvention of himself. And what I've watched over time is this young man who has taken that style and that sense of worth and has taken it to the stratosphere, from what, like from attending fashion shows throughout the world to being featured in countless editorials and magazines, blogs, all, any and everything that you can find that has to do with unique fashion. And my task at hand was just to make sure that the palette I used, as far as finding the images for each layer of clothing, for the backdrop, everything that surrounded him had to be a representation of what his whole style is. So even when it came down to figuring out the name for the piece, once I was complete, I probably had about three, four different names in mind. And I guess that's also in the spirit of the many different phases, or I don't want to say phases, but the many different paths that he went down to eventually find the path that was for him. And yeah, I stuck to Dandy Noir because what I saw that day was someone who was very sure of himself and sure of his purpose.